Crypsis is the ability of an organism to avoid observation or detection by other organisms. It's the ability that allows a creature to blend in with its environment, to avoid detection through camouflage. It means the ability to hide in plain sight. A police detective believes that he has solved the vicious murder of his wife, Sandy. Before wiping out those he thinks are responsible, he dictates his motives to his computer. The most challenging part was trying to imagine how a man, a policeman actually, would deal emotionally with the murder of his wife. I wanted to communicate that he loved her very much, but I didn't want him to be too weepy and sentimental about it. Men might be weepy and sentimental, but I don't think that they would let that part show when they're explaining how they're going to kill a bunch of people. Simon is shocked into numbness by the brutal manner of his wife Sandy's death and the incomprehensible circumstances surrounding it. Attempting to portray this emotionlessness was also difficult. I tried to balance his feelings of loss with the fact of his disbelief at the whole thing. Simon sees himself as a policeman, and he doesn't want to let his emotions get in the way of the job that has to be done. I was reading an article on mimicry about how different organisms fool others by pretending to be something they're not. For example, some use Crypsis, the ability to blend in, to allow them to sneak up on and eat others, or to avoid being eaten by others. Others are able to change and control their hosts, always to the benefit of the organism and never to the benefit of the host. This is called manipulation hypothesis, as opposed to symbiosis, which is where two organisms work together to their mutual benefit. There are some birds and bees that just use up the creatures around them, sometimes in the most unbelievable and shocking ways. So I got the idea, what if people could be manipulated in that way? What if there was an outside influence that made you do things and made you think they were your own idea? And that's what the story's about. I learned that nature is indeed red in tooth and claw, just like Tennyson said. And sometimes on the most basic level. Creatures that don't even have eyes or brains as we know them, nematodes and protozoans, are capable of altering the behavior of creatures much farther up on the evolutionary chain, animals that do have eyes and brains. Some of the manipulations that go on in the insect world are not to be believed.
The cover is a reference to Toxoplasma gondii, a parasitic protozoan. Research has shown that when rats are infected with it, they lose their fear of cats. It goes back to the central theme of the story. What if people's behavior could be utterly affected and controlled by outside agents? There's also a character in the story whose name is Cat.
This is Simon talking about himself. He says, yeah, my imagination. A hell of a thing is my imagination. Once upon a time it was a joy and a comfort. I could always easily picture how things might have been in the oldie times or how they might someday be in the future times and so on. It kept me entertained as an only child, did my imagination. Later it helped solve crimes. I had a knack for picturing how the crime scene might have looked before the crime. I could picture how things had gone down, what was gone now that should have still been here, what was still here that should have been gone. But after what happened to Sandy, my imagination became another enemy, showing me the blood and the screams and the fear and the pain from all angles. But they will all rule my imagination, will they not? Because without it, I could have never pictured where best to place the charges. But I digress.
I'd just like to say that readers will find Crypsis to be a departure from the other stories I've written. There's a great deal of rather gruesome violence in it, plus the idea that what we're reading is an explanation that's being related to kill time while we're waiting for explosives to detonate. That might be offensive to some people. Don't say you weren't warned. 9thstreetpress.com